Good morning. I'm Jason Smith, and welcome to Beyond the Blueprints. We explore all things new construction all across the Triad, talking to industry leaders and professionals. Today we have with us Robbie Perkins. Robbie, thanks for joining us. I'm going to read a little bit about Robbie so you kind of know who we're talking to and why in a minute. But Robbie has been in the commercial brokerage business since graduating. From Duke University. He had a BA and an MBA. He currently serves as market president for NAI Piedmont Triad and is currently among the leaders in the brokerage volume with NAI Earl Furman organization. Robbie has been a part of the Greensboro community, or the leadership community, since 1993, serving 16 years on the city council as well as mayor from 2011 to 2013. Transportation planning, regional cooperation, and major community investments such as the Greensboro Aquatic Center, Stephen Tanger Performing Arts Center were part of the focus as his time in being elected as an elected official. Since leaving the elected office, Robbie has served as president of TREBIC, which is the Triad Real Estate and Builders Coalition. He's also chaired the Economic Development Committee of the North Carolina Association of Realtors and is currently board chair of the Greensboro nonprofit One Step Further. He and his partner, Christy Myatt, share 6 children and 7 grandchildren. That's impressive.
And 2 on the way.
And 2 on the way. All right. Robbie's currently running for mayor of the city of Greensboro, which is a big reason why we're here today to talk to Robbie. And so we look forward to talking to you about your perspective on Greensboro and where you see us going, where this train's going over the next coming years. So,
well, Jason, you didn't put any dates down in terms of how long I've been in the commercial real estate business, but I'm in my 46th year.
Wow.
And same company, different names, but same company for 46 years. And I look to continue practicing real estate for the next, as long as I can.
Well, speaking of dates, I had Dwight Stone. He's been on this podcast. My mom, Betty Smith. Gary Hill, all of which are in there somewhere between 45 and 50 plus years in the real estate business as well. So we've had quite a few experienced people on here that have been in it for a long time. And I remember when I got in the business in 2000, obviously that's when I met you and Dwight and other folks. So that's quite a career.
Well, it's a long time. It's a long time, but the politics goes back to 1993.
Right.
And I served several terms as the district representative representing Northwest Quadrant of Greensboro, and then shifted around to an at-large position, and then ran for mayor in 2011. Got beat in 2013, been on the sidelines since then. But with Mayor Nancy Vaughn announcing her retirement, my phone started ringing, and I had to get back in the game.
Right. Well, we're glad to be here with you today. I'm going to jump right in with some questions. The first one is, what's your position on public safety, and what are a few specific items you'll do to make Greensboro residents feel safe or more safe?
Well, public safety is one of the cornerstones of anyone's platform if they're running for Greensboro City Council or mayor. Our police department needs to feel like they're backed by our council, and over the years that there've been a lot of national concern about police and defunding and that type of thing, and I think it affects the morale of the police department. And one of the things that I want to make sure we do is we want to back the blue, frankly.
Yeah.
I currently serve on the Greensboro Police Foundation, and I'm interested in making sure that those guys feel like they can do their jobs. One of the things that I hear from people out there on the street is, besides there too many people getting shot in town, is that the traffic is moving way too fast. People complaining about Cone Boulevard and Wendover Avenue, Friendly Avenue, Market Street, cars going 70, 80 miles an hour in the 35 zone. And we've got to find a way to balance the profiling piece with the speeding piece and get these cars slowed down.
Yeah. I heard just during all these riots that are currently going on and things, I heard a politician, I won't say her name, but one of the things that was said was, well, nobody died. or whatever. I'm like, is that really the bar? I mean, come on.
Well,
We won't, that's kind of crazy, right?
One of the problems that we've got in Greensboro is that the folks that I talk to have a perception that our downtown is not a safe place to go visit, and so they stay out. And so we've got to do something about that. And perception becomes reality if you don't deal with it. And I think our police department, if you let them do their jobs, they're going to turn the tide.
Yeah. Well, I've been downtown plenty. We just ate at the restaurant at the bottom of Roy's building here.
Yeah, B. Christopher's.
B. Christopher's. I've never been there before. It's fabulous, by the way. And we walked around afterwards, and it felt great downtown. So, all right. What kind of infrastructure updates are needed to keep Greensboro on a positive growth pattern? For example, the Tanger Center is fairly new, but there's obviously ongoing things that need to be done to keep that place a showpiece that it is, or the Aquatic Center, the Coliseum, maybe any kind of Gate City Boulevard improvements. What kind of things are that you can talk about or aware of that you think need to be done to keep us on that pattern?
Well, one of the things that you have to realize is our Greensboro Coliseum was renovated in the early 90s. So we're 30 years out in terms of major items done to that facility. And the budget number that I hear is about $200 million to keep that facility competitive with venues in Raleigh and Charlotte. That's a lot of money. The city's got about $20 million budgeted to cover some things like new bathrooms and the concourses and that type of thing. And we've made a request to the state legislature for an additional $34 million. So we could have up to $54 million to spend, but that's only 25% of what we really need.
Right.
So we got to find the money to do that. If you lose your Coliseum, you lose your big concerts, that's a huge piece of the whole economic development puzzle in our city.
And what brings people to the market or helps them want to be here.
And they come into Greensboro. If you look at the big acts, the Chris Stapletons of the world, 74% of the people that buy tickets for that act, that particular show, live outside of Guilford County. So this is a regional asset, and we're making that point to our state legislators that this is more than just Greensboro, that you're helping the whole region by supporting this particular asset. Tanger Center's newer, but it's still, we're still gonna have to invest dollars in the Tanger Center. We're gonna have to invest dollars in the Greensboro Aquatic Center because the environment of water tends to cause things to deteriorate quicker. So we've got the floor deck in the Aquatic Center needs some work. And it's air conditioning systems, those types of things, in order to maintain what we think is one of the finest swimming venues in the entire country.
So obviously we're on the sports council together, but I volunteer and do the timing for a lot of the swim events and things, from time to time, and it's an extremely cool facility, and to see those Division I athletes swim and dive is it's scary to watch them dive, but the swimming's quite impressive.
Well, we've got to get the stairs in the diving well replaced because they do deteriorate. And last thing we want is somebody who's going to go jump off of a 12-meter platform, falling on the stairs going up there.
Yeah. Well, I stood at the first one and looked down, and I'm not even sure I jumped from that, so I'm definitely not going to go to the top.
Yeah, and then we've got the Bryan Park complex, and if you go out there, you just have to visit the restroom facilities to notice that they need to be replaced. I mean, you really can't bandage a 50-year-old building together, but so much, and huge economic development impact with all the soccer teams coming in from all over the Southeast into that facility, and we've recently dedicated some new fields out there, some new turf fields, and we need to upgrade the bathrooms for sure. So we need to get on with that. But it's generally we've got we don't have a prepared food tax here like they do in Charlotte and Raleigh, and that keeps us from generating the recurring income to be able to make the improvements to our large
Do you
facilities.
see something like that ever happening here?
Politically, they say no, it's not going to happen, but we're on an unequal playing field with our competitors, and Raleigh and Charlotte are both making huge capital investments in their Coliseum facilities, and we're not able to do the same thing because we don't have that funding source.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on to housing a little bit. What specifically will you do to assist the housing shortage that we currently face and work with developers on developing and redevelopment projects and things of that nature? What's your take on that?
Well, the whole housing piece is in dire need because we've been so successful in bringing in all these jobs to the region. And the Realtor study said we need some 32,000 units between single family and multifamily units in Guilford County between now and 2029. I don't think there's any way to achieve that given the current infrastructure and the price of land and the regulatory environment. But I think that the number one thing we need to look at is the regulatory environment because according to the National Association of Home Builders, and the head of that came in and spoke at a meeting probably 6 weeks ago, 24% of the cost of a single family house is regulatory compliance. 41% of a multifamily unit is regulatory compliance. So we've got to do something to reduce the cost of those regulations so that we can have affordable housing. One of the things that's happening right now is Representative Zinger has put a bill together, and it's got bipartisan support over in Raleigh to help make that process go faster, and basically telling the municipalities that they've either got to give you a permit within a certain amount of time or the permit is deemed issued. Now that's revolutionary. When it passes, that's going to change the way I think things work. The other piece to our whole housing shortage is another piece of our essential community infrastructure, and that is water and sewer service. Because you can't put 32,000 units on 1 acre or 2 acre lots and well and septic. You've got to have some density. Only place you can get density, true density, is when you've got water and sewer service. So there are studies underway for a regional water and sewer plan. The community has asked Senator Berger and the legislature for an additional $1 million to fund more engineering studies as to how we put that system together. But in my view, Greensboro's got to be a leader in that because we've got the largest public utility in the region. We also have to include High Point. We have to include Randaman. I'd like to see us include Reedsville. I'd like to see us include Burlington. So it has to be a regional facility. The capital costs on something like that are huge, and approaching probably $2 billion over a 10-year period of time. So this is not something that any individual municipality can do by itself. We're going to need some help from the feds, and we're going to need the state's help, and then we'll do our share locally.
So I'm going to skip down a little bit because that brings me to another question. With the announcement last week of Jet Zero, we have this Toyota plant that's well underway and everything, and Honda and Hayco and Boom, and all these folks coming or in process of coming at different stages. But you and I you probably don't remember this, but we had a conversation one time at a Trevick meeting, and we were talking about Toyota specifically, about how all the municipalities seem to be, not together on everything, and not and what can we do to bring, my question to you was, what can everybody do to help mend the gap and bring these municipalities or jurisdictions together to try to solve some of this water and sewer stuff? Because you said it's going to take a group effort. Greensboro can't work independently of any other municipality,
including Guilford County,
and achieve all of this that needs to be done.
Well, and you look at that 15-mile stretch from downtown Greensboro down 421 to the Toyota plant, and I think we're behind on planning for that area, and drawing land use classifications on a map is one thing, but actually putting the physical infrastructure in place is another. By the time you do your upgrades for your water and sewer so that you can even extend the basic water and sewer lines, it's probably 7 to 10 years. So we're behind the curve. Yeah. We've got to push to catch up, and we've got to look at things like the Jet Zero operation and understand that they may not be fully operational for 10 years, but we've got to start now to put the infrastructure in place so that we're ready for them. Yeah. That brings into mind all the proposed developments in northwest Guilford County and, David Couch's land that was de-annexed from Summerfield and how that all fits in. We need all types of housing across the board, and we need much more than we've been ever planning for in the past.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, obviously we have a housing shortage or home site lot shortage. They kind of run parallel. What tools are available to you as the potential future mayor to help create home sites and lots of all price ranges? Because you're right. I do a lot of business in North and Northwest Greensboro, Guilford County, and for us to buy land, put a lot on the ground, next thing you know, lots are $150,000, homes are $1 million. I mean, what can we do as a population to try and create housing diversity in those areas even?
Well, we've got
or others.
The tools that we've got are the regulatory tools on the one side. We've got the zoning tools. We've got the permitting tools. We've got the zoning piece has actually been going pretty well. I mean, you look at Greensboro the last 5 years, and lots of property have been zoned. The getting it from zoning through actual permitting and under construction has taken longer than what I think that we can accept. And I think we need to go ahead and push hard for streamlined processes that will put things in place. Of course, we got to make sure that they're done right, but things like not allowing TRC approval until you get a driveway permit from NCDOT. I think that those can run concurrently instead of waiting for NCDOT to respond to TRC before we can move forward with the grading. So those are things that I think are common sense that we can get involved in and shortcut that time frame. The other thing is we've got we got an $802 million annual budget. So we've got money coming in and being spent every year. We've got to allocate a portion of those dollars to the capital needs of the water and sewer system. We've got to make sure that we're looking forward enough out and replacing the older stuff that's substandard, but also adding new facilities in to open up the areas like 421 South toward Toyota.
Yeah, I think, I've been in the business now 25 years. It seems like yesterday I started, but the growth has always seemed to be just real strong north and northwest, but I got to believe that south and southeast is coming. Their day's got to be coming, and it's beautiful land out in those areas, and now with Toyota and all that, I just got to believe if we can get this water and sewer thing figured out and kind of move up 421 there's beautiful property for people to put housing on.
Well, having the urban loop, which is a 47-mile highway around Greensboro, has really brought all of that land into play. Before the loop was completed and now you can go all the way around it, it kind of favored one side or another. Now that you've got the loop 100% complete, you've got opportunities for growth in all regions. And what I hate to see is us not taking advantage of proper growth because we don't have the water and sewer. We won't develop at a high enough density. We'll have more traffic jams, and we'll create more Summerfield-like situations as opposed to having things run more efficiently.
Where within the city staffing or departments do you think there's room for improvement or efficiencies? You talked about one a minute ago, going through planning, but I talk to developers all the time, and it's always been like this, I know, but I feel like people pull their hair out and trying to go from one this to that, and where are areas that you think could be improved on? I mean, you talked about one a minute ago, but
I think Greensboro is pretty good. I mean, when you know, everybody's going to gripe about it because we live here, and it's hard.
It's hard.
But if you contrast the approval process in Greensboro to, say, the approval process in Durham, you'll take Greensboro every time. And our folks, I think, are set up, and they listen to you, and they work pretty well with developers. What we've got to do is we've got to make sure that the staffing allocation within the city budget is adequate to get the job done, because you know, the permits of the next 10 years aren't going to be the permits of the last 10 years. So we're either going to have to improve the process or add people to get it done. And so that's a budget question that the city council has to be aware of. That's important. The other piece that I think we need to work on is communication between the departments so that they're all operating together seamlessly as opposed to being in silos. And that's a function of getting a strong leadership team in your manager's office. And we're going to have some opportunities there because we've got a new city manager. We've got a couple of the assistant and deputy city managers that are going to be retiring soon. In fact, Chris Wilson's leaving June 30th. And they're going to have to be replaced. So making some good hires within that management team at the city manager's office is imperative, and having the manager's office not only communicate with the city council, but communicate through the departments and bring those departments heads in as resources. You know, we got some pretty smart people that are running departments, major businesses for the city of Greensboro, and they need to be at the table not only with the council people, but with the manager's team to make better decisions.
Okay. So Greensboro, let's talk transportation a minute. We are such a hub for transportation, and I feel like we're evolving. What does this transportation look like to you over the next 4, 5, 10 years?
You know, we got more interstate highways coming in here than just about any place in the country.
Amazing.
And one new one, 685, is going to link southeast Greensboro with Fayetteville. And Fayetteville, of course, is on I-95. So we'll have a major highway, interstate highway, linking I-85 and I-95. Well, you know, you can't have Toyota and Wolfspeed and, you know, VinFast maybe and others along that highway without having substantial growth. Fayetteville is one of the big job training areas in the whole state with the military down there. So having that interstate linkage between Fayetteville and Greensboro, between 95 and 85, I think is going to be a big boom. And so that's the new one, but you can still go up into Ohio, you can go up into Virginia, you can go to Atlanta, you can go to California, right here on these interstate highways. We probably have the best transportation system, at least in highways, of any city our size in the country. And that's a large part due to the work that a couple of chairman of the board of North Carolina Department of Transportation, Doug Gallion and Mike Fox, have done over the past 20 years. They have really brought home the bacon for this area and gotten projects done, including the urban loop that the other cities just are very envious of where we are.
So when you guys are out on an economic development side, recruiting businesses, I'm sure that's probably a major factor and a piece.
The highways blow them away. Yeah. What they've got in the highways blow them away. We need, from an economic development standpoint, we need to strengthen what we're doing in our downtown. Yeah. I don't like the way our downtown looks. It's got to be better. We've got to set a higher standard, and we've got to execute better. And we got to have a sense of urgency. So I've got some things that I want to do in our downtown to make a big difference.
Do you ever see in the future people catching a train or some other kind of transportation system from outside this downtown area into the downtown area to help alleviate parking and cars and traffic? Is that anything? I know Charlotte has something along those lines. People go to different places, catch train, go into downtown work. You know,
Charlotte's different because it's the density of the population is much greater. What I do think we need to do in this area is to preserve the rail beds for the trains so that sometime down the road, probably 40 or 50 years from now, somebody can say, gosh, those folks were smart by preserving those rail beds so we can put this light rail in to serve the city of Greensboro. Yeah. We're going to need to do that. But in the meantime, we can get people from the city of Greensboro to their jobs with fixed route buses. And we ought to have something set up to go to Toyota, have something set up to go to Procter & Gamble, and have something set up to go to the airport. So those are three routes that have to be fixed. And so I would be paying a lot of attention to transportation in the region. The bus systems have been kind of run the same way for a long time, and I think, frankly, if we could figure out how to merge High Point's bus system and Greensboro's bus system, we'd be ahead of the game.
Yeah, that's interesting. Last question. We're very blessed to have credible parks and greenways. What's the future look like for parks and greenways?
Well, again, it's all part of a budget process, and we do have more parks per citizen than just about any place in the country. And in my view, the number one thing that we have to do right now is we've got to maintain them. I mean, when you go by a lot of our facilities, they're not as good as they should be. I was at a meeting at the Roger Brown Rec Center in South Greensboro a couple weeks ago, but I was pleasantly surprised to see how well maintained that facility was. So most of ours are okay, but we've really got to do a good job with the playgrounds and the parks to make sure they don't fall down on the maintenance issues. Yeah. The maintenance issues are also safety issues. If playground equipment is not maintained, then it's not safe. So it's that whole package of making sure that we have the proper budget allocation, not just to do new stuff, but to maintain what we've got.
What about Parks and Rec? I guess we'll move a little bit over there to the athletic fields and things where we try to attract these local, regional, even bigger tournaments. I have a son that played baseball, and we were pretty much on the road all the time, and so what's it going to take Greensboro? And I know they host a lot of events. Greensboro is an incredible city for hosting sporting events. But as far as the amateur sports outside of soccer, things, I mean, what are we doing anything to look into to those kinds of things?
Well, that's the Greensboro Sports Foundation is definitely focused on that. Mm-hmm. But not only do we need some new fields, but we got to maintain what we've got, mm-hmm. and we have to understand that that the youth and amateur sports in Greensboro and Guilford County is over $1 billion industry. So this is a big business. It's a big part of creating hotel, motel revenue, big part of our restaurant business, big part of just the general money that's being spent are people coming in here to use these facilities, and we're going to have the World University Games in here in a couple of years. We've got an ACC tournament here in 27 and 29 from the men's. We've got all kinds of big events. We're still running track and field.
The women's
national
state
championship.
Tennessee's playing at the Coliseum, I think, in October.
State and Tennessee are playing at the Coliseum. So we've got all kinds of stuff happening. So we've got to focus again on putting adequate capital in place to maintain the quality of our facilities, because frankly, these folks we're having to bid on these events. Yeah. And if we don't win these events, it's because our facilities aren't as good as the other guys. Yeah. And so we've got to maintain them at a first class level. And right now I'm starting to get concerned that we're slipping.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. That's great to hear these answers to these questions, and just to get your position on where things are and where we're going in Greensboro.
Yeah, and in order for us to be where we need to be, we've got to have our citizens in Greensboro be actively aware of what our local government's doing. And we've got 203,000 registered voters in Greensboro. 32,500 of them voted in our last municipal election. That's 16%. And in my view, that's pitiful. So we've got to get folks energized. We've got to get them to turn out. We got to get them to vote for good candidates, and I hope a majority of them will vote for Robbie Perkins for mayor.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, if you're watching, thank you so much. We really appreciate you watching. If you want information on our podcast, go to triadnewhomesguide.com, and you can watch past podcasts. Please share them. Invite a friend to watch them. We'd love to get our viewership up. And if you have anything, reach out to the triadnewhomeguides.com. Thank you.